PM. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Burke. Dr. McGee, roll call.
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burt.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, I'll make a motion to seal the closed session minutes of May 24, 2023. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Dr. McGee.
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burt.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
In reporting closed session on a 4-1 vote, the committee approved an MOA regarding a teacher. Would you please join me in standing for a moment of silence and the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. McGee, we have some guests.
We do have some guests this evening, Mr. Chairman. So we have students from the Pothier Citizens Campus along with Mrs. Carvalho, principal. Mrs. Carvalho, would you like to begin the presentation?
Wow, they think I'm tall. So I'm going to hand it right off to the students. They've planned this. They're going to introduce themselves, explain what they're doing. They are going to talk about our SEL initiatives along with academic teaming and show you what they've been doing in their class with Megan Feeney, our innovation specialist, and Mary Desjardins, their fifth grade teacher. Come on up, boys and girls. Yeah. So you can move this so that you can, they can hear you, okay?
We are here on behalf of Citizens Pothier Elementary School to present social emotional learning and academic teaming. Students in grade 5 Citizens Elementary School worked in academic teams to demonstrate and develop a visual of their understanding of the district social emotional learning working definition.
The video, okay? So we have a video at this point.
Okay?
So if
Step
you wanna-
down.
Please. You don't have to be afraid of them. They're not, they're gonna face that way. Why, just because your principal's 4 foot tall? Right? Don't. Shake.
I'm not gonna be like my mama.
They're all friendly people. You don't have to worry.
Oh God, the video's happening too.
Okay, wait a minute, buddy.
Wait, I'm up?
You wanna put this down?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the district working definition. What are we learning? Social emotional learning, known as SEO, is the practice of identifying, understanding, managing, and communicating our thoughts and feelings, using empathy to build healthy relationships and making responsible decisions.
Why? To create safe and just communities where we can all meet our goals and grow.
In addition to the posters, one team made a video to demonstrate their understanding. Enjoy.
We are fifth graders at Citizens Elementary School, and we are talking about social emotional learning skills.
Hello, I'm Logan, and I will be talking about self-management.
Hi, I'm Kenta, and I'm going to be talking about self-management.
I don't mind. I'll be talking about self-awareness. Hi, I'm Alejandra, and I'm going to be talking about responsible decision making. Hi, I'm Emily, and I'll be talking about relationship skills. Self-management means if you are feeling big emotions, you can go to a quiet space, do something to clear your mind, or if you want, you can scream into a pillow if you need to. Another reason is that you can probably go into a quiet space and take some 3 deep breaths or read a book or listen to music. Self-awareness means you understand your feelings so that you can manage them. Responsible decision making means making responsible decisions. For example, instead of running out when you feel a strong emotion, you can talk to someone. Relationship skills means that you communicate your emotions to improve your relationship with others. To conclude, social emotional learning is the practice of identifying, understanding, and communicating our thoughts and feelings, using empathy to build healthy relationships, and making responsible decisions so that we can create safe and just communities where we can all meet our goals year round.
How has learning about and practicing social emotional learning impacted you? Xavier.
It impacted me by being sharp as an eagle and thinking straight. Dante.
I agree because I have had the same thing happen upon me, and it is much easier to speak to people after learning about SEL.
We have also learned about empathy and how bullying could make a change in somebody's personality.
I agree and would like to add is that communicating is really important because the cards actually help me learn new stuff about people's ideas. I also agree because of SEL, it helped me show more emotion and communicate with others better. I can understand their feelings, I can understand what they're going through, and sometimes I could feel what they're going through in their footsteps. Lily?
I agree because SEL has helped me reach out to people that are in need, and it helped me understand how other people's might feel if I talk to them in the wrong way, and it helped me build up empathy. Alejandra.
I agree because sometimes for people it can be hard to communicate, but with SEL it helped me more to communicate with people. Alana.
Thank you, Woonsocket School Committee, for giving us this opportunity to represent SEL and academic teaming.
Good job. presentations. Always, always. Out of the mouth of babes.
I think they're so cute because they
They're
are
adorable. Yep.
so cute.
Someone?
The IT
Hi,
guy.
guys.
The IT guy.
We can't see.
There we go.
Hey. Thanks, Dr. McGee.
None of them have
No,
to.
he was hoping the director of operations would step up.
None of them have to.
So will I. You want to say?
Yeah, you want to go to.
That was fantastic presentation. Want to thank you, the school, and all you students. What a great job you did.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Now we'll go into public comment. And I want to say that for anyone addressing the school committee this evening during good and welfare, please begin with your name and address. Your comments shall be no more than 5 minutes of speaking time and should be in good decorum. Please be aware that the committee cannot respond to you during good and welfare, but may direct you to an appropriate member of the administration team or may meet with you directly after the meeting for further discussion. Is there anyone who would like to address the school committee this evening? What'd you do, sit behind me?
Good evening. My name is Paul LeBon. My address is 520 Second Avenue. As someone who had a 30-year career as a public speaker, I want to really commend those young ladies and young gentlemen on their presentation here. I told a couple of them early on that, more people are afraid of dying than are afraid of public speaking. And I told them a little joke that at a funeral, the guy giving the eulogy would rather be in the casket. But the reason I'm here is about a very serious matter. I'm a 1973 Woonsocket graduate. This is my 50th reunion coming up in 3 weeks. I left Woonsocket in 1975. I had an incredible career that took me to 160 cities around the world. When I had to retire 10 years ago, I had to walk away from a $1,500 a day consulting gig. But I repurposed my life and I began doing mission work for the Catholic Church in Guatemala, Mexico, and Cuba. I helped organize masses by 2 popes, and I helped the Obama administration negotiate with the Castro regime. So coming back to Woonsocket, I lived in Pawtucket and I did some substitute teaching there. And I had a BCI done, which was fine, right? So coming back to Woonsocket, I thought, well, gee, I could sub here and maybe I can inspire some of these kids, not bad for a kid from Golan Avenue to get where I got in life. I applied to be a substitute teacher. I went to the Woonsocket Police Department, had a BCI done. I was called to meet with Miss Dargon. And so when she came in, the first thing she said to me was, she saw my cane, she said, "Oh, you disabled? Do you have a problem getting around?" I said, "No, I'm fine." And we could hear a little sound outside. It was my service dog, I left him in the car because I figured I'd only be 10 or 15 minutes. And he was kind of yipping. I said, "That's my service dog." And then she asked me a question, which is violation of ADA regulations. She says, "What's wrong with you that you need a service dog?" That's not a question that can be asked. The question that can be asked is, what service does the dog perform? And I'll tell you right here and now, Aggie is trained to warn me of an oncoming stroke because I've had 4 strokes. So when we sat in the room, Ms. Dargon said, "Well, I'm sorry, you can't substitute teach here. Your BCI came back with a history of child abuse and neglect in Texas and Ohio." Now, I lived in Texas for 32 years, but I've been in Ohio for business meetings, but I've never been there on winter. And she says, "I'm sorry." I said, that can't be. She says, "Well, if you can figure out how to disprove it, we'll put you on the list." That was very upsetting. When I left, one of your employees was walking to her car in the lower parking lot and started swearing at me about my dog being in the car. I told her to mind her business. She swore at me some more. So I was really unsettled. And you know how the narrow handicap space is. Trying to maneuver out of there, I rubbed up against another car, not even realizing it. And I went home. I started making calls to Ohio and Texas. The next morning, I got a call from a Woonsocket police detective that I'd actually rubbed up against another car. I immediately reached out to your employee, the woman, got her in touch with my insurance company and the body shop, and everything was fine. Ohio sent me a document saying I had absolutely no history of child abuse. Texas sent me a documentation saying no one could have gotten the records because the only person who could learn about a record of myself would be me filing a notarized request. Ms. Dargon made those allegations up totally out of whole cloth. She lied to turn me away because maybe she didn't want me there as handicapped or whatever, but she lied. She didn't fabricate, she didn't fib, she lied. And if you're going to lie about me,
Please keep your comments, Mr. Laban, in good decorum.
Okay.
This is not a place for this. So you can make your point. You have a couple of minutes left, but I will not let you continue to speak this way.
Okay. I raised two very successful sons. One is a pilot for Southwest Airlines and Texas Air National Guard. The other is a vice president of a software company and a member of the Texas Army National Guard. I have always been a great parent, and nothing could be more demoralizing than being accused of those kinds of things. I have filed a complaint with the Rhode Island Human Resources Commission, and I went to Boston personally and filed a complaint with the EEOC. Both people who interviewed me, both intake workers, were flabbergasted to hear. And by the way, and I got the documentation from the Woonsocket Police Department that says my record was totally clear, nothing at all. So I just want to make you aware of the type of person you have working for you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the school committee?
All right, good evening. We meet again. My name is Hannah Loeb. I am not a Woonsocket resident. I live in East Providence, but I'm here because I'm a teacher at the Northern Rhode Island Collaborative. I spoke to you 2 weeks ago regarding the future of our school, and I am once again here to ask that you keep us open and to remind you that if you do stay and keep us open, you will not be alone. I work at Foundations Academy that's in Smithfield. We serve some of the neediest special education students in Woonsocket and throughout the region. Students with developmental challenges, students with social emotional challenges. Our union president, Kim Souza, has now had several productive meetings with legislative leaders, RIDE, and the Office of the Commissioner of Education, most recently on May 17th. At that meeting, she put forth several proposals on behalf of the NRIC Employees Union, of which I am a member, for the collaborative's continued operation. To date, we have not yet heard back from them. We're waiting on a response. That said, we are not putting all our eggs in one basket. We are still hoping that at least one district, and hopefully more, will step forward to remain on our board. 2 weeks ago, I said there were other districts who would stay, provided they did not stay alone, and that is still true. I know that there have been concerns from Woonsocket and from other districts that with all the districts withdrawing, there would not be enough students to warrant keeping an entire school open. That's valid. We very strongly believe that we would continue to receive students from non-member districts and from districts who have not expressed an interest in remaining on our board. At present, there are currently I believe 8 non-member districts who send us students. I believe they make up about a third of Foundations Academy. And none of them have indicated that they want to send their students elsewhere. Certainly there are enough students in the region who need the services we offer. Woonsocket currently sends 18 students to Foundations Academy. None of them are set to graduate. In addition to specifying, however, that these students be educated in a highly structured small group setting, their IEPs also dictate that they receive, and this is just for Woonsocket students, a combined total of over 85 hours of services per month from certified specialists in occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, and social work. Over 60% of these hours are in occupational therapy and speech therapy. It should be noted that at Foundations Academy, we have 2 full-time occupational therapists and 2 full-time speech language pathologists. If you are interested in more of this data, please, or a more detailed breakdown, please feel free to speak to me after the meeting, and I or one of my colleagues will get back to you. We can try to provide similar data for the auditory oral program and for the vocational program. That'll take a little bit more time because we've got to reach out, and I'm more in tune with the foundations program. I know that there are still concerns among superintendents and the school committees about finance, regarding financial liability, especially pensions. If we close on June 30th, the districts will be liable for $1.6 million. That said, none of it will be owed for probably at least a decade, likely longer. At this point, however, the collaborative could stay open for another 30 years and this wouldn't be an issue. In fact, if we continue to stay open, then nobody owes anything. My colleagues and I are still confused about the reasons for the dissolution. Financially, we're a lucrative and stable entity. Educationally, we operate several highly successful programs and provide services to some of the state's most vulnerable students, services that they might not otherwise receive. And as the school year draws to a close, we are starting to get increasingly concerned about those students who would ordinarily be coming to us over the summer for extended school year services. Our kids are scared. Not all of them are aware of what's going on, but those who are scared. We've seen a change in behaviors. We know the kids talk about it. We try to keep them from talking about it in the classroom, or at least try to keep them from letting it disrupt regular classroom activities, but we can't hide this from them. Their parents, their families know about it, the teachers know about it, it's on everybody's minds. We're coming to work, coming to school every day with a hammer over our head. Our kids have been through a lot of transitions and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of trauma, and they really don't deserve that. They certainly don't deserve any more. You have 2 more meetings before we dissolve on June 30th. You have one on the 14th and one on the 28th, at least per the calendar I looked at. You can put us on the agenda and vote to recommend to Dr. McGee that Woonsocket remain a member of the Northern Rhode Island Collaborative. I said this 2 weeks ago and it bears repeating. You have the power to keep us open. You have the power to continue to enable us to continue providing services and hope and a bright future to Woonsocket's neediest students, to Rhode Island's neediest students. You have the power to not only lead, but to teach by example and to show just how much these students matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to address the school committee? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go into recognitions and announcements. Dr. McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the school committee. I first want to commend and congratulate the Pothier Citizens Elementary School students who did their presentation this evening. Just another in a long, long line of examples of the amazing students that we have at Citizens Pothier and that we have across the district. Yes. It's also another example of 2 other things: the importance of supporting our district and our students around social emotional learning. Citizens is showing that they're living it daily, and again, I want to congratulate them. And it also shows us the importance of academic teaming. The committee has seen, I think, just about every school, almost every school in the district, certainly I think the middle schools and the elementary schools have shown the importance of academic teaming and what it means to our students and our teachers, quite frankly, in terms of providing opportunities for our students to communicate with one another, to agree, and to respectfully disagree with one another. And that's a very, very critical attribute, and it is one of our graduation criteria here in the district. So kudos to all of our amazing students at Citizens Pothier and to our amazing teachers and administrators. Thank you so much.
Again, thanks.
The National Honor Society and Rhode Island Honor Society induction ceremony was held at Woonsocket High School on May 18th. I want to congratulate the 33 underclassmen and the 36 seniors who were inducted on the 18th. I know some of the committee were able to attend, as was I, and it was once again a great ceremony where we celebrate our amazing high school students. The 2023 Senior Walk will be held on June 6th. For those of you who are not aware of what the Senior Walk is that's an opportunity for our graduates to return to their elementary school and to the middle school that they attended, a parade through the schools, and the students and teachers create posters and signs, and it's just a great opportunity to recognize our graduating seniors. Woonsocket Civics Day is scheduled for this Friday, May 26th at Hamlet Middle School. We have our 8th graders who are going to be presenting their Generation Citizen action projects on that date. I know that the school committee, I believe, was invited to attend. I've been in the past, and it's a great time to see our students become active participants in civics and having a voice really in our school community.
Is that going to be in the cafeteria, Dr. McGee?
It is. It's going to be in the
Okay, thank you.
cafeteria. On Monday, Memorial Day, beginning at 8:30, the George Nasuti Novans Pride 5K road race will run. I'm looking forward to that. So I hope to see many folks from the community and from the district there. On May 30th, we have our Music Awards Night that's scheduled in the Woonsocket High School Auditorium. On May 31st, we have the Senior Awards Night, which is also at the high school auditorium. And on June 5th, we have the Sports Banquet, which will be at the high school auditorium. Our Woonsocket area career and technical students will be recognized at their Senior Recognition Night on June 6th. That's going to be right here at the Stadium Theater on Main Street. The class of 2023's graduation will be on June 9th at Barry Field, weather permitting. We also have our National Junior Honor Society induction ceremonies at both Hamlet Middle School and Villanova Middle School. Hamlet's is on June 13th, and Villanova's, I believe, is on June 8th. And then lastly, our Generation Citizen Civics Day statewide is going to be on June 2nd at the Rhode Island State House. And that is very similar to the projects, some of the projects that our students are going to be presenting here on Friday. They'll be presenting at the State House. That's something that we've been partnering with Generation Citizens for quite a few years now. Generation Citizens is they provide our district, our students in grades 8 and 9 with a terrific civics curriculum. And again, that's going to be on June 2nd, so we're looking forward to attending the State House to see our students present their civic projects to members of the General Assembly, as well as members of the public who will be there. And that, Mr. Chairman, concludes my recognitions and announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. Any comments, questions for him?
Nope, all the good stuff.
I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the recognitions and announcements. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Next, I'll make a motion to approve the May 10, 2023 open meeting minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Burke. Are there any corrections, additions to the minutes? Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, I'll make a motion to discuss and approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Dr. McGee, I know we have
So
a potential amendment for the consent
we
agenda.
do, if the committee could make a motion to amend, to add a field trip request, that would be greatly appreciated.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Kepiscus. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Burke. Dr. McGee, roll call on the amendment.
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Dr. McGee.
So actually, Mr. Rob Gretzka from the Career Center is here this evening to speak a little bit about an opportunity for our National Personal Finance Challenge students from the high school and Career Center who have been afforded the opportunity to move on to the national national championship in Cleveland, Ohio. So, Mr. Gretzka, if you could just explain what that entails.
Sure, Dr. McGee, and hello, council members. For the last 4 years, Woonsocket High School has competed in competitions for economics and also personal finance. Multiple teachers have entered teams. We've been very successful. The difference is this year, we won the division for the inner city schools, including Providence, Central Falls, Pawtucket, and Woonsocket. And what has happened is they've given us an automatic berth at the national championships. And this particular field trip would take place next weekend. And in addition to room and board and meals being paid, they've also afforded us the luxury of paying for our airfare. So 4 students and myself would have our airfare paid for. We would also have, dual occupancy for the students. All 4 of them identify as he or him, so I don't foresee an issue with that. I would have my own room. We've had some discussions about trying to get a second chaperone, and I could give you details on that, or I could talk to Dr. McGee at his convenience. While I have kind of the pulpit, I just want to thank Mr. Notoriani for all the help as far as additional technology that was required this year, and also Mr. Prue. Mr. Prue took time from his administrative duties to actually proctor, and I think having him in the classroom was a good thing. It kind of pushed some of the students a little bit further. So just wanted to thank each of them. That's where we stand on it right now.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. Any member want to take anything else out of the consent agenda for discussion? Dr. McGee, roll call.
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, I'll ask you for your superintendent's report, Dr. McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as I normally do, I will run through first the personnel appointments and changes. As you see, we have a pretty lengthy list here this evening. The first section is the hourly stipend extracurricular positions. As the committee is aware, we are preparing for our summer programming, summer enrichment programming. So we have been busy in selecting teachers and staff for those summer positions. I think we're in pretty good shape with respect to the number of staff that we have who will be teaching and instructing our students this summer. The next large category that we have are transfers, and below that we have leaves of absence. So the committee is aware that recently we held our annual job selection process in which teachers bid on open positions in the district. So we have the list of those teachers and the positions that they were appointed to. We also have at the bottom, again, the leave of absence. And just to explain to the committee how that process works, if a teacher in the district applies to another position and that position is either at a different level. So for example, if I am an elementary grade 3 teacher and I apply to a middle school position, or if I'm a middle school teacher and I apply to a high school position, then the teacher is permitted a 1-year leave from their position because it's considered a different level. In addition to that, if a teacher is teaching outside of their area of certification, they're also granted a 1-year leave. So that's what you see when you go to, when you scroll down to the bottom there, if the committee had any questions about that. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the personnel appointments or changes.
Could you explain displaced? Because there's quite a few. What does that mean?
So displace, so the committee earlier in the spring approved non-renewals.
Right.
Right. Displacements means that there are staff who are displaced from their position, the position that they occupied. However, they are, they do have the ability to apply and bid on other positions once the job fair has come to a close.
Okay.
So displacements means that there's a position somewhere for them based on their area of certification or certifications.
Okay. Vice Chair
Dr.
Burke?
McGee also explained the rescissions that we have. There's quite a few of them.
So let me just go to that. So those would be people who are, hold on one second. Let me just look to see where they are.
Dr. McGee?
So yes, I
The
found it.
rescissions are individuals who were not renewed based on fiscal exigency or certification.
Would you speak into the mic, Ms. Dargan? Can't hear you, please.
The rescissions are for the employees who received non-renewals on the basis of certification, meaning that they obtained the appropriate certification to be renewed for the following school year, or for fiscal exigency, and the result that we were able to find a position for them and rescind their layoff notices or non-renewal for fiscal exigency.
So they were laid off and now they're back though because the
Yes.
position opened. Okay.
Yes. We do anticipate a few more on the next school committee agenda. There are 5 of the 20 educators who received a non-renewal for fiscal exigency, and we were able to recall all but 5.
Thank you.
Dr. McGee?
So I'm going to move on to the my second agenda item under my report, District Strategic Plan Update. So just to let the committee know, we have been working for the last 3 or so months on the 23 through 26 District Strategic Plan. We currently are almost finished with the entire plan. We're actually going to be presenting the plan to the school committee at the June 14th school committee meeting. We also are going to be uploading the part of our strategic plan that RIDE requires districts to submit into the portal that RIDE has for all school districts in the state. So we'll be submitting that to the RIDE portal on June 1st. So there's a deadline for that. And then the committee will actually receive the entire strategic plan on the June 14th, at the June 14th school committee meeting. So we've been working really hard on it. I think that the committee will be impressed with the work that's been put into it when it's revealed to you for your approval on the 14th. And with that, Mr. Chairman and committee, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. Does anyone have any additional comments and questions? I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the superintendent's report. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, we'll go into subcommittee reports, and I'll ask Vice Chair Burke and Mrs. Costa to give us the health and wellness update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
The
thank
floor
you.
is all yours, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Ms. Costa. I appreciate that. The Health and Wellness Subcommittee met this past Monday, May 22nd. The meeting began at 4:08. Our first order of business is that we approved the minutes from May 27th, 2023. We then began a series of updates of the several participants of the Health and Wellness Subcommittee. First, we had an update from the URI SNAP Ed program. Joanna spoke to us about what a successful year they had this year, working with the 5th graders at Globe School, where they had a recipe contest. In fact, the school committee and members that are present right now in the audience remember that we sampled some of the food from that contest. So that was also very good. URI Snap Ed is also going to be working with a PD offered to the district on June 29th. And in late July, we'll be working with CCF on some of the summer programs. Next, also for future purposes, possibly URI Snap Ed program, Students Take Charge, will be back in the Woonsocket district at Citizens. We're hoping next year. So they come in October and they finish usually around February. And again, there'll be contests from the students to choose their favorite recipe. So hopefully that we will have that at Citizens next year. And this year was the second year we've had the program. Harris School was the first year, 2 years ago, before COVID, and then obviously last year was Globe. Next, we had an update from Sodexo, and one of the first things Ashley talked about from Sodexo, that we had a successful Future Chefs contest. If I can see, there were several of the judges present in this room for the Future Chef contest. And again, the school committee and the audience in the building right now can remember that they also were able to taste some of the recipes from that particular contest. We did have a student that went to the regional, but unfortunately did not go further than that. Sodexo is going to be very, very busy throughout the summer because of our summer program at all the schools. They will be offering breakfast and lunch to all the students who will be here for the summer programs. And on June 27th, Sodexo will have this summer kickoff program where they will be offering a barbecue at the World War II park around the Splash Group, what they call it?
The Splash Park.
Splash Park. So that'll be June 27th between 11 and 1. And then after that, Sodexo will always have a site there to provide lunch to people at that park. But most of Sodexo will be presented to the schools. So that'll be that program. We also heard from the Rhode Island Healthy School Coalition, and Curran especially gave us a follow-up to the Healthy Meals for All legislation that right now is going through the General Assembly. She did mention that the Senate has already passed that legislation, and the committee of the Financial Committee of Financial Budget is now having hearings on that bill right now, and it is being held for committee as all bills in that particular subcommittee are held for committee. But we'll see what happens come the end of June when the General Assembly finishes. We're hoping for good news there. We also heard from the Woonsocket Prevention Coalition, and Derek was with us for this meeting, and he talked about how there's been several speakers that the Prevention Coalition has brought into the schools, particularly to the high schools. And these were speakers that addressed the students about addiction, whether alcohol or opioid addictions. And from what we heard, their messages were well received by the student body. Woonsocket Prevention Coalition is also going to be working with many of the schools and the summer programs, especially working with CCF. Finally, we had a brief discussion from Project Aware, and we talked about several of the mental health events that have occurred in the district recently. Many of us were in attendance at the Wednesday afternoon event where we saw over 200 of our high school and middle school students become teen mental health trainers. And once again, first in the state to do that. And I just read today in the commissioner's memo to educators, she particularly highlighted our teenage mental health trainers program that we saw. We also talked about, what else did they refer to? Also that Saturday mental health fair that was held at the school. So during the committee, we reviewed a lot of the good things that happened throughout the year, dealing with health and wellness, and then talked about some possible future plans, and which I mentioned. And the one final future plan is that the next meeting of the Health and Wellness Subcommittee will be September 25th, 2023. We adjourned about 5:07. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Burke. Any comments, questions for him? Then I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the health and wellness update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, I'll ask Ms. Morel to give us the special education update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In front of you is the update that I've provided. A few years back, the last year that Dr. Sullivan was with us, she had gotten the special education department involved in the SET program with the University of Kansas. That's the special educator technology-based training of trainers. So the first year we had teachers involved in the program, and then the past 2 years, Kelly Gerard and Maria Gallardo have been working very closely with the University of Kansas. So the special education department has been planning and developing professional development opportunities for the second straight year through the RIDE grant program, which is the SET, that is partnered with the University of Kansas. And the goal for the grant is to provide professional development opportunities to special education teachers to learn how to provide students with special education opportunities, not just focused on learning functional skills, but also academic skills. So we have 2 goals that we're working with SET and the University of Kansas with. One of them is to increase the performance on our DLM. That's the dynamic learning maps with the students. Instead of taking RICAS, they take the DLM. And the second goal is for the teachers to understand the grade level essential elements, which, if they understand and are working well with the essential elements, will also increase their IEP goal writing and increase the students' knowledge in the DLM. So it kind of goes hand in hand. So they've been working on that very closely for the last 2 years. Next, I have my special education enrollment numbers. This snapshot is as of May 17th. Right now, there are a total of 1,473 students receiving special education services within the schools from pre-K to 12. This represents 26.3%. It is slightly higher than the April snapshot, and the enrollment from April has increased by 17 IEPs. Again, this is the season where we find more students eligible. They've gone through the MTSS process after quarter 1 or quarter 2, semester 1, semester 2. By this point is when the students have, if they've been referred, the testing process has been followed and eligibility has happened. We tend to see an increase of IEPs towards the end of the school year. Are there any questions or concerns with the?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. Does the IEP continue automatically to next year?
Yes. Yep. It's updated yearly.
It's updated, yeah.
Is it possible to estimate the MTSS students that are involved? How long do they stay in that, or is that obviously dependent on the individual?
MTSS, it
But
definitely.
on an average, how long do they stay?
A student can stay in MTSS their whole educational career, depending on the progress that they're making.
Okay.
Some students just need that tier 2 support to help continuously make that progress. Some students need the tier 3 support to continuously make that progress. The increase in tiers is the increase of supports from either a math interventionist, a reading interventionist, the supports from the classroom teacher that they're providing the students to help them make progress. And when all the tiers are not working, that's when the referral to special education goes in.
Are you satisfied that all the schools, all the school buildings are up to date in terms of either recommending or sending school into that program? You're not behind, are you? Because, in other words, if you got a number of students that are being followed and monitored, are there others that could be coming up that you're not aware of, or is the process concurrent and up to date?
It is definitely concurrent and up to date,
Right.
and it's an ebb and flow.
Right.
So some students that are making progress right now, they may exit out of MTSS, and
Yes.
other students may not be making progress, may come into MTSS and back and forth. Just like students with IEPs, we will be working on certain goals and objectives, and some students can make a whole full year's growth throughout the school year, and they might still be slightly behind, but they've made a whole year's growth. Some students make 2 years growth. Some students only make a month's growth. So it all depends on the supports for the students and in what the students are able to obtain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'll make a motion then to place and receive and place on file the special education update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Burke. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, I'll ask Mr. Perrier for the finance update. Mr. Perrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In front of the school committee this evening is the March 2023 fiscal update. School district is currently projecting a little over $160,000 surplus as of June 30th, 2023. To review some of the financial highlights, on the revenue side, state aid has been adjusted to the amount that was approved in June 2022 by the legislation, as our budget was finalized before the states. The expenditure side, all regular salaries are $3.408 million under budget at this time. When netted with the employee turnover allowance of $1.470 million, this will put the overall salaries a little under $2 million under budget. The district has moved salaries to ESSER 3 for this fiscal year only, which has directly led to the surplus. Substitute salaries line is projected to be $123,000 over budget due to several vacancies spread across the district throughout the year. Medical expenses are currently $1.2 million over budget. During our next finance subcommittee that will be happening in June, we will begin the discussion about possibly using our OPEB funds to pay retiree medical expenses, as well as potentially transferring some money from our medical set-aside account. Additional speech therapists, contracted nursing services, PCAs, and behavioral interventionists have been needed this year beyond what was originally budgeted. The district has begun moving some of these expenses to ESSER 3 in order to cushion the overall expense of the general fund. We currently have moved expenses off the general fund at this time for building improvements, furniture and fixtures, and technology-related hardware. They've been transferred to capital fund at this time. As I stated earlier, we are looking at about $160,000 surplus. Yet we still have some flexibility left under ESSER 3 and ESSER LEAP as we close out the fiscal year. I'd like to point out one thing in particular. This is the first time that I've seen medical expenses above $10 million. That's to kind of give you an idea, that's over 10% of our budget. Medical expenses are back. I think it's safe to say at this point that the savings that we realized during the COVID time period is gone. And I think going forward, this is something that we're going to, as always, continue to work on, but it's just something that I wouldn't say is alarming to me, but it's certainly something that we're going to need to pay attention to going forward. I think we're going to be discussing some of this at our finance subcommittee meeting in June, so we can get a little bit into that, a little deeper into that, and put together kind of a plan on how we're going to tackle this going forward. At this time, if the school committee has any questions, I would love to answer them.
Just some comments, Mr. Perrier. And when we look at, we've approved the preliminary budget. We've had a discussion with the city council this week. Obviously, the budget is not finalized because we need to know where the revenue sources are and when they get finalized, because at that point, we'll be able to really look at how we're looking at next year, you know, with regards to our operating budget and what expenditures we may be making out of ESSER to go forward. Because at that point, it'll be important for us to have a list of all the ESSER expenses in 3 that we've done, that we've spent thus far, and where we're going with that. So that in terms of the plan for next year, because it's going to come really quickly, that 24, 25 will be on us. And obviously, we're going to have to really take a hard look at the budget process and the budget amounts at that time.
Yeah, I think the work is going to begin next fiscal year for this, obviously, but we're going to be looking at pretty much everything across the board. We'll get to that. We'll get into that into the fall, and we'll have a very, very thorough investigation of every line item as we continue to move forward, and try to streamline as much as possible, yet still provide the services that we need to provide.
Correct. Thank you. Anyone have any comments, questions? I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the finance update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Leclerc. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, we'll go into unfinished business. I'll make a motion to discuss and approve the new medication administration policy for second passage. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Are there any additional questions related to the policy? Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
New business. I will make a motion to discuss and approve the school calendar amendment for 2023, 2024. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Leclerc, Mrs. Costa. Dr. McGee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So I don't recall which school committee meeting it was. It was a recent one where I presented you the 23-24 academic calendar. You approved it. I was excited. We got it out in plenty of time. And then a week later, I got a letter from the Board of Canvassers saying that officially, because here in Woonsocket, most of our schools, if not all of our schools, are used as polling places, we had to make modifications to accommodate September 5th and November 7th. September 5th is the primary election day, and November 7th is general election day for Representative Cicilline's seat in Congress. So we had to go kind of back to the drawing board, and we did. So you have in front of you the modified 23-24 school calendar, which reflects September 5th and November 7th as no school days in the Woonsocket Education Department. So what does that mean? That means that instead of the last day of school being on Wednesday, June 12th, it's now Friday, June 14th. So that is reflected in this new calendar that you have in front of you. So with your approval this evening, I will be getting this out to the community and the teachers and staff across the district this week.
Questions, comments? Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
And our last item on our agenda, I'll make a motion to discuss and approve the P3 project stage 2. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Leclerc and Mrs. Costa. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Perrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In front of the school committee here is our Civic Builders Stage 2 P3 contract. To give you a little background, I've been working with both the city and with the Rise Mayoral Academy over the last few months. You may recall you did approve a Phase 1, P3 Phase 1 pursual, and that's what we have been doing. And now we have arrived at this point here where it is time to look at the contract for Phase 2 for potentially moving forward. So I have shared that contract with the school committee. To give you a little more information on that, we've currently are looking to split this up. It won't be a 50-50 split. Right now, we're looking to split 55% will be paid by Rise Prep and 45% will be paid by the Woonsocket Education Department. I've attached some calculations on how we came to that, and it is based on square footage estimates for the property that we're currently looking at. If we do, just so you know, the total cost of the contract is a little over $1.1 million. And when split out, we're looking at just a little bit over $500,000 to execute this contract that we'll be responsible for. So I've also attached a memo to kind of talk about, what we've worked through as far as Stage 2 goes and some of the things that we're going to be working towards as we work through Stage 2. We're talking about the site control. There's a little more information about how that's going to work. The site disposition and public process, site diligence, zoning, and finally economics. So there's a little memo there that would kind of go into a little more detail on the things that we've been working on. And then finally, I have attached a picture of the Dunn Park, which is currently what we're looking at to move forward with. That map of Dunn Park and its two lots is two lots that comprise it, and you do see a red slashed area. That's the section of park that will remain a playground and not be included in the land, which we'll be appraising right now. We're currently going through that process. So I don't know if anybody has any particular questions on this. I'd like to answer them and see what I can do.
Well, let me start. Since we got this information this afternoon, I took a look at it. I've got some major concerns. So let me ask you this, has the city council approved this?
I'm not sure that the city council has approved it. I'm not aware of anything going in front of the city council at this
I
time.
don't believe they have. So first of all, we have a potential site for both the Rise High School and the Wed Elementary School on the same footprint, on the same campus, if you would, separated, I guess. But it's set up for Dunn Park, but it seems to me that has to be approved by the council. And who owns Dunn Park? It's the city. So we'd have to be selling this to whom? To Rise and Wed? It doesn't make sense. I know we've got a long-term lease in there. I think the agreements or however they come up with, this has to be examined by our legal counsel.
Absolutely, yes.
This is too wide open.
I will work with the legal counsel on that. We can certainly review the contract in full. It's a very short contract. It shouldn't be much of a review. And I can certainly move forward with that. Are there any other concerns that you have? Because I'd like to address everything right now.
The city planners, that amount of $1 million change, that's for architectural drawings, that's for planning. It's with the typical phase 2 that we went through for our building.
Precisely.
Okay, so has that been examined by anybody, the cost? Has the committee looked at those to make sure they make sense?
What committee do you speak of, Mr. Chairman?
P3 committee.
The P3.
The committee that you
Yeah,
set
well,
up.
to kind of give you an estimate, P3 for us was in the area of $700,000, and the big expense of that was the design of the new school.
Right.
So for me to stand in front of you and say $500,000 for this, I'd say that's in the ballpark, considering we just went out to bid for this exact process, and we're paying a very comparable fee to the architects that designed the elementary school that we're looking to build. So I would say that the fee does make sense. I don't think it's because it is a $1.1 million fee, but remember they're designing 2 schools as opposed to us who just designed 1. So I wouldn't say the fee is outrageous at this point, but we can continue to dig deeper into that fee and flesh it out a little bit more.
It seems like, looking at the plot, is it my understanding that the size of this is comparable or smaller than what we're proposing for our elementary school that we've got approved in stage 2, our stage 2?
I would say that probably this park is going to be a little bit smaller than where we're looking to currently build our elementary school.
That's why I was looking at the dollars.
Yep.
Because it's a smaller footprint
Mhm.
than what we have. So only seeing the lots, not seeing anything. Obviously, the plans haven't been developed yet because they're only at phase 1.
Absolutely.
But still, I think this is something that we should consider tabling until the council looks at this, approves it, because I don't think we should be the first to approve this, because we're dealing with the land issue and the site issue. If the site has not been finalized, it's like putting the cart before the horse. It's in stage 2, because typically, I mean, we're looking for a site when we're looking at stage 3. Stage 2 is a little premature, but at this point, I understand where the committee wants to go. However, it seems to me that we should wait and do some more homework from our end. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Kepiscus?
I just had one question when I looked at it this afternoon. Everything connected to this, the designers, the proposal, all that stuff, all people connected to charter schools. Do you have concerns that those people are capable of building a public school? Because I don't know if there's structural differences. I just don't know. I'm not that familiar. But that immediately, I took a look at the guy's background, and it's all charters, all the way back.
Well, this group that Civic Builders has, it does usually work with charters. So this is kind of a new thing for them. They do have one building that they have built in New York that is a split charter school, public school. So they do have a little bit of experience in that, and I think they're looking to build on that going forward. As far as the architecture goes, we'll certainly, if we do move forward, I think there'll be a development of a sort of like how we have the building committee. There'll be another committee that we'll put together from both public school and charter school members on it that will kind of go through the plans, much like the building committee did when we got a little bit into the weeds as far as the planning goes for our phase 2. We do have those plans on the horizon if we do continue to move forward with this. So I think we'll be able to provide input, and we'll certainly be able to we just did get through a successful phase 2. So I think we have a little background and we have some good knowledge on that by all means we could certainly share as we go forward in this process.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd like to speak.
Please.
The land that'll be sold to the civic builders, correct?
That's correct.
So the city, this council is going to deal with that issue going forward. I know from our conversations and we've had that this moves forward, there's going to be a lease purchase agreement. So initially that lease purchase agreement will come into sale at the end. If the school's built,
right,
we would have to buy our portion of the school, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Leclerc.
Right. I have multiple issues with this contract or proposal in front of us. I think the land is one issue. I think that the variables that are in there that they can't get right now is another issue, and then never mind a legal issue. So I think I agree with Mr. Bourget. We should table this at a minimum until we get our legal and then go from there.
Absolutely. I will work with the legal counsel. We'll take a thorough look at the contract, and we can certainly keep you informed going forward on this.
One of oh, please.
I was going to make a motion, but you're going to speak.
I have one more thing. In looking at the potential lease agreement, the contract, it talks about getting this signed in May. And if the lease purchase, if our portion and Rise's portion isn't finalized by December 15th, 2023, it seems to me the dates are off. This has got to be very preliminary. I mean, they threw in dates, but I don't see how this is.
I believe the dates that they were shooting for would be September, as that's when the next phase 2 would be due. So right now, the timeline is if we do decide to move forward with this, we'd like to file a stage 2 by the middle of September, much as we did ours for February. We go to September. That's the next time to file a completed phase 2, and that's sort of the timeline that we've been speaking of. But I can certainly take a look at that, and we can clean up that language as well.
I did not explain myself the way I should. You're right. September 15th, that's when they want to issue the phase 2. But I'm saying when you look at the agreement, there are dates in there that speak of May, and then the lease purchases have to be finalized by WED and by Rise separately. I think it's by December 15th. If not, you lose the lease purchase. I think we need to look at all of that.
Okay.
Because it just doesn't make sense. We're going into June. So this is not going to get signed because, like I said, I think this has got to go to council. We have to do some work. And before before that language gets finalized.
So I'll continue to work through this process here. I'll convey your concerns to the P3 group that I work with, and we'll see what we can come up with for solutions.
Mr. Leclerc.
One more. I just realized again, there's one more portion of that relative to if one portion can't be finished, how there's some fines or some repercussions because one couldn't be finalized. I think that's another issue to look into. I don't want to be held liable for something that if we have no control over it, it goes sour and we're on the hook for some cash.
That's exactly what I was talking about, the dates. If we don't meet the dates, we get fined or we lose. And certainly that's not the intent. We don't want to put ourselves in that kind of situation at all.
Absolutely.
I make a motion to table this indefinitely until we hear from council.
Second by the chair and Mrs. Costa. Any other discussion? Dr. McGee, roll call.
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus,
Yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Having nothing else on our agenda, I move to adjourn at 8:10 PM. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned.